Today we're going over one of my favorite game modes in Brawl Stars, and that is Duo Showdown. I'm going to give you a bunch of tips and tricks, as well as give you some suggested brawlers on every single map inside the game that'll help you get the edge in Duo Showdown. Now you guys know that I like to do all sorts of different stuff on this channel. Everything from, like sneak peeks on updates to guides to tips and tricks to just crazy gameplay, and even Can You Dig It shows up on here. You never know. There's some wild stuff. It's just a wide variety of stuff on this channel. Of course, today is a Duo Showdown guide. I'm counting on you guys as well. If you have better tips or just some tips that I didn't cover inside this video, watch to the end, and if you see something like, oh, Lex forgot to mention this, be sure to post it down in the comments below, and all you guys read up on them, I will be sure to heart and reply all of my favorite tips. Now, first and foremost, let's cover something very basic but essential, and that is to stay together. Now, it's Duo Showdown. You're a team, right? So why would you want to go off and fight somebody 1 versus 2 when it can be 2 versus 2, so you can have a better shot of winning? Be sure to stay together. However, don't stack up too close together. Try not to, at least, because there's lots of brawlers obviously that do splash damage. So stick together, but not too close. Work as a team, stay together. Now, this second tip is actually very critical to Duo Showdown. This happens more so in duos than it does in solo showdown, and that is positioning. Now, quite often in Duo Showdown, you'll get pinched in between 2 teams, and if that happens, it's going to be a bad time for you, because you're going to have teams from both sides of you attacking you. They converge right on you, and it's almost a no-win situation, so you're going to have to be very cognizant of where the other teams are on the map. Let me show you some graphics to explain exactly what I'm talking about. As you can see on this first one, there are 3 teams here. Let's say you're the cyan color team, the blue team. There's a pink team and a red team. The position you are in right now is not a good position. You're gonna have 2 teams converging on you, and when you do that, it's gonna end up like this. Yeah, not a good time for the blue team right there. So, how do you combat something like that? How do you keep yourself out of that situation? Well, if you see that you have a team above you, team below you, or just a team that's kind of surrounding you, probably like say in this instance, the team in red, they can't see the team in pink. They can only see you. So they're gonna go after you, and likewise for the pink team. So what you wanna do is try to move positions, kind of rotate around to force the other team into a different one. So let's say if you're the blue team, you move up and to your left and around the corner there, which pushes the red team downwards. Now, the pink team's still gonna be coming after you, but when they do, they're gonna find that you're gone, and in place of you is this red team. And when that happens, this is what it's going to look like. A dead red team and a happy blue team. So be aware of all the other teams as much as you can on the map, and if you see that you're getting surrounded, do everything you can as quickly as you can to reverse that positioning, or at least get out of the situation you're in, because if you have 2 teams converge on you, it's done for. You're gonna have a very tough time, and that's not how you win trophies. Now, my third tip, it's a 3-for-1 special. That's right, number 3, you get 3, and that is to use your respawns wisely. Okay, so what do I mean by that? First off, let's go over the first one of these 3, and that is to wait until your teammate respawns to pick up power cubes. If your teammate's dead and you got some power cubes laying on the ground, wait. Don't pick them up unless you absolutely have to. If another team's coming and you got to just pick them up and bolt, well then by all means pick up the power cubes. Don't just let the other team get him, or don't just stand there and try to hold your ground and die. Pick up the cubes and go. But if you're cool and there's nobody else around, wait till your teammate fully respawns. And I mean fully respawn. When they start to respawn, they're kind of in a bubble. Wait till they fully come out completely and then pick them up, or else they won't get them. Secondly, the way you can use your respawn is if your teammate has just respawned and there's another team coming at you, the person who's just respawned, use that invulnerability, because you're invulnerable for about 3 seconds or so. Charge the other team, do damage while they can't do damage to you. Don't get too aggressive, or else you're just going to run in there and you're going to die and just give them another power cube, and you're still going to be dead. But try to be as aggressive as you can while you're in that immune state, and then back off and go back to the normal positioning. And your teammate can use you as a body shield as well. And the third way to use your respawn is actually counter respawning. Let's say that you killed one of their 2 teammates, and you're chasing that other guy, and you've been chasing him for about 10-11 seconds. You gotta kind of have to count in your head. It might be time to back off, because you know that their teammate is about to respawn. When they do, of course, they've got that invulnerability as well. So kind of be cognizant of how long it's been since the other team's player has died, and don't get too aggressive, rush in there, and then you find, oh, they just respawned right in my face, and now I can't kill them and I'm dead. Now my fourth tip is to use voice chat. That's right, if at all possible, use voice chat when you're playing duos. It helps tremendously. Now, you may be thinking, Lex, I don't have access to voice chat. Well, I got the solution for you. If you head down to the description below, there's a link to my Discord server. We've got like 3,000 people in my Discord server. Great big fun family to hang around with. Lots of people who love Brawl Stars. So be sure to come and join my Discord server because there's free voice chat channels in there. You can hop in voice chat. You can talk with your friends. You guys can play duos together. Trust me, being able to talk to your friend while you're playing helps tremendously. Make some new friends. Chat with them on voice, and I promise you, it will work much, much better in Duo Showdown if you two can actively talk to each other. Number 5 may sound self-explanatory, but it's not always, and that is to survive. That's right, Duo Showdown is just like Solo Showdown. You don't want to be too aggressive. Now, I will say that there is a very fine line between controlled aggression and just going balls to the wall and just going after everybody. The second one is not going to usually work out too well for you. It may catch some people off guard, and in the lower trophies, I will say that it does work decently well. You can just be really aggressive, but once you get up and start climbing in trophies, it's not going to work as well. So play smart. Survive. If at all possible, survive. If you get third place, you're not going to lose trophies until you get to the really high rounds, and you actually lose trophies for third place, which Supercell, change that, please. That should never be possible. Third place should always be nothing. Okay, soapbox. I'll step off of it. Let's get back to the tips. If you can make it to third or second place at minimum, if you get a really bad spawn and there's like no boxes around you and there's no other teams that you really get on and you kind of find yourself like, oh, we're halfway through this match and we've got one power up, you're probably not going to win the game. So in that case, don't try to win the game. If you see an opportunity, by all means, take it. If like two teams are battling out, they're all almost dead, and there's only a couple guys left, and they're almost dead, then yeah, jump on them, take the opportunity. But otherwise, maybe it's one of those situations where you just hide out. Just completely chicken out, hide in a bush, wait for your opportunity. If you find one, strike, and if not, take your third or your second place and be happy with that. Tip number 6 is to pinch. I'm not talking about waking somebody up from a dream. I'm talking about like whenever there's a person running from you and there's a wall, one teammate go on one side of the wall, the other teammate go on the other, and come at them from both sides. That's called pinching. Make sure that they have nowhere to go. You trap them off to where they can't just keep running and running and running. You'll never catch them that way a lot of times, and so pinch people off. And tip number 7 is your team composition. Be very cognizant of what brawlers work good for what maps, what brawlers work well together. Which brawlers do work well together, do you say, Lex? This is your guide. Why don't you tell us? I'm glad you did, because we're going to go over every single Duo Showdown map very briefly, and I'm going to point out some recommended brawlers to you guys so that you can have a better idea of who you should play and on what map, because it is very map specific. Okay, so before we actually start naming off brawlers and which brawlers are good on which maps, let me just say this, a couple statements. 1, almost every brawler is viable in Duo Showdown. It's a very wide, diverse meta, and so just because I don't name a certain brawler off on here, don't go, hey Lex, no, you're stupid, because Nita works great on this map. She Nita's pretty good on most maps, but she's not like superior on any of them, so she's probably not going to get a mention on any of these, but that doesn't mean you can't win with her. Team composition is more important than individual brawlers, right? So you want to make sure that you have somebody, you wouldn't want to roll in with 2 tanks, right? I would recommend having somebody with some range if the map is, conducive to that, and somebody with some kind of, control. So for instance, a Poco and a Brock make a good team, or a Dynamite and a Brock make a good team because you got the long range firepower and you got some control. Okay, so secondly, I'm not going to mention Leon on any of these maps. Why is that? Because he works on all of them. Leon's probably his best game mode is Showdown, and if you've got Leon, just play him on Showdown, period. I don't care what map it is, just go play him on Showdown. You're probably going to win, so there you go. Leon's not going to show up here, but he's great in almost every single one. And the last thing before we hop into all these brawlers is that anytime I mention Bo here, it is specifically in relation to him being a level 10, a max Bo. Star power is absolutely useful, if not mandatory, in higher trophies on certain maps. Okay, one last thing before we hop into all the brawlers, and that is that I'm going to recommend individual brawlers, but just remember that note that I told you earlier about team composition, firepower and control, or like a tank and some control. Be sure to put your team together accordingly. I'm going to recommend individual brawlers here just because it'd be too complicated to list off tons and tons of different teams, but use your noggin and, you know, pick smart teams. But these brawlers I'm going to show you, they work really well on these maps. Thousand Lakes is dominated by long-range brawlers just because it's a pretty wide open map. You got wide areas. However, in some cases, like Dynamite works really well because he can stay in the middle or on the sides, throw over the walls. He can actually use the star power to jump over the lake as well, which is pretty darn cool. Frank gets an honorable mention here too because he actually can do pretty well kind of in controlling those lanes coming into the middle section there. So don't count out Frank, but for the most part, it's a long-range brawler map. Next up is Caventure, and while these brawlers are in no particular order, perhaps they are on this one, and that is Max Bow, especially late game. In the middle there, if you're playing duos, you pretty much need a Max Bow in the higher trophy levels. If you're in the lower trophy levels, don't worry about it. Bring like a Shelly or Bull, you know, and you're going to be doing fine. But this is definitely a close range map in the middle there with all the grass. Ricochet is an interesting one. Now, he actually works well early game around the edges because he can bounce all these little corridors, so his balls down the corridors. However, late game, when you're in the center, you're really going to be leaning on your teammate because he does not do well in late game. So he's kind of a little risky pick here, but he can work well. Double Trouble, once again, a long-range brawler map. Brock, Penny, Piper, Crow, Mike, and Barley work great on this map as well. In fact, the throwers on almost any Duo Showdown map, you can almost bring a thrower. Maybe not Feast or Famine, but other than that, you can pretty much bring a thrower on almost any Duo Showdown map. Speaking of Feast or Famine, once again, at the top of the list, Max Bow. Because the center there is covered in grass, a max bow is almost essential, especially in higher trophy levels. If you have a max level bow, by all means bring him. If not, Shelly, Spike, Pam, El Primo, Frank, they all work really well on this map. Hot Maze is absolutely a thrower map. Now this is a very interesting, and the choices here are pretty strategic. A classic choice is like Mike or Barley, a thrower, and Mortis. Since throwers are really great on this map, there's so many walls, it's really hard for people to get at you. Throwers are great. However, what counters a thrower? Mortis. So Mike and Barley, or Mike or Barley and a Mortis actually make a great team. An interesting side note here is that if you want to play the counter comp to that, you're going to take like a Shelly or a Bull, or even like, actually better, like a Bull, El Primo, or Shelly, and a thrower of your own. Because if Mortis is coming at you, he's not going to want to mess with a Bull or El Primo or a Shelly. Doesn't want to get near them, and you've got your own thrower to help counter the other thrower. So a big tanks are actually, they show up on this map quite a bit, and if you're playing a tank, I would recommend that you get to the center as quick as possible. Pick up any boxes along the way, get to the center and hold the center, and you're going to be really hard to remove. Island Invasion, look at the grass, see Max Bow. There you go. Other than that, Shelly, Bull, Crow, Pam. Crow works really well as kind of like a pseudo Max Bow because if you get those poisons ticking, you'll be able to see where the brawlers are. And Pam's the same way because she has such a wide shot fan that she can tag brawlers that are hiding. Rockwell Brawl is absolutely you're going to see a lot of throwers here as well, but this is probably one of Colt's best maps. That big long range there in the center works really well, but Poco I find actually works really well on this map too. But Mike, Barley, the throwers, Poco, Colt, Crow, El Primo, and Spike, all great choices here. This is actually a very, very diverse map. Almost any brawler can work and will work well on this map. So Rockwell Brawl or Rockwall Brawl, be sure to you can just choose anybody pretty much, and it's going to work out pretty well for you. Scorched Stone is an interesting one here. Brock, Penny, Piper, Crow, Ricochet, Pam. As you can see, lots of long-range brawlers. This is probably one of Ricochet's best maps just because of how open it is. I will give an honorable mention to the throwers. I think that they can do a good job here, but you have to be pretty good with the thrower to do a good job here. I didn't put them in the 6 here, but they easily could have been. So honorable mention to the throwers, but take a look at these brawlers for this Scorched Stone. And the last one here is Skull Creek. Absolutely, once again, a thrower map. That's why you're seeing the Mike and Mortis, or the thrower and the Mortis combo. Again, Crow, this is probably one of Crow's best maps, I believe. It's wide open enough, and you get plenty of sight range to tag the throwers, and he works really good to counter throwers on this map. So does Mortis. Again, Mortis always counters the throwers. So if you find a map that's heavy in throwers and you happen to have Mortis and you want some practice on them, this is a good place because you're going to see tons of throwers, and Mortis does a good job there. Crow, Frank, and Pam also honorable mentions to any of the tanks. If they get to that center, can hold it down, they can do a really good job there. So Bull, Primo, Shelly, they can do a good job there in the center. This is also a very diverse meta on this map, but throwers probably still dominated. But take a look at these 5 brawlers on this map. So there you go, Duo Showdown. You've got a ton of tips. You got a lot of recommended brawlers for all the different maps. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys like this content as well as just the wide variety of stuff that I put out on this channel, you know, everything from the goofy and sometimes cringy stuff to the gameplay, the guides, the sneak peeks, everything, consider subscribing. I would really appreciate the support. Button's right down there somewhere. I think it's down there. I hope you guys enjoyed the video though. And as always, until next time, I'll catch you guys on the flip side. Peace out.